Hello everyone, happy Friday. How are you today? Nice to have you here. Digital beer stream, what's in the glass? Today is the Friday edition. Hello sir, how you doing? And Friday edition means sip stream. Sip stream means we're gonna drink some beers. And has been a really great week. This is the third week of the digital beer stream. The final episode of the week, which is great. You know, we're all gonna think about what we're gonna cook tomorrow, what we're gonna cook, you know, on Sunday, homemade Sunday roast, and you know, all of these beautiful treats. And I hope you all are safe, guys, out there. I hope you all drinking good beers. I hope you all manage to cook your own food and things. And to the people that prefer to instead order some takeaway today, I just want to say thank you to all the bread makers, all the pizza makers, you know, all of the cheese makers and everything. There are lots of people out there that make possible for all of you, all of us, to have a great food and, you know, great stuff in our fridges. So thank you to all beautiful makers out there. And again, digital beer stream on a Friday. We normally going for the sip stream. Sip stream means we're drinking some beers. And when I say drinking some beers, I mean we're gonna try to talk about a specific style with some, you know, professional brewers, or anyway people that know a lot about that specific style. And I would like to remind everyone that my t-shirts and this one, it's coming from the fact that this week has been the Water Into Beer week. Water Into Beer is a beautiful bottle shop and homebrew beer shop in Brockley, southeast London, and I recommend everyone, not just South Londoner, to go there, because home brewing could be the thing that is going to, you know, make you a revelation for all the rest of the time that we have to spend in our houses and flats. And it's a good hobby, and you can also learn how to make this beautiful liquid. And I'm gonna drink a beautiful beer called Colonel Beerated Saison, which is quintessentially one of the most famous Saison in London brewing scene. And I love the fact that they're doing many different type of this beer, and this specific one is the one brewed with Citra, dry hopped as well. So quintessential, very great beer, super smashable, 4.7%. I mean, it's just, you know, perfect beer for a Friday. Maybe most of you will have a pale ale, a lager, a pilsner, very nice IPA. Well, you know, we're here today to let you remember that Saison are such a great and very, you know, unique type of style, because it's more like a family than a specific style. So it's great. And let me open it. So when I'm gonna invite the guest, we're going to be able to drink together and cheers. So guest for today is a guy that I really respect, because he did something that I really appreciate in beer, drinks, foods in general, and is when people get tradition and mix it up with contemporary. There are many breweries out there, there are many people that try to do that, and this is great. It's simply remarkable. It's one of the most beautiful, you know, advanced move that you can do within the beer industry. And you know, we're talking about Belgian-born brewer, which moved to London and is based now in London, just in the border with Essex. And all the beer that I try from these guys are great, especially because for brew this style in a proper way, you must know deeply what are you brewing and what you actually doing. So it's not just, you know, just an exercise. You really must to understand what's going on. So I haven't seen if Roman is here already, and if he's not, he's gonna come with us in a second. Well, in the meantime, I want to remind everyone about Saison. And when we're talking about Saison, it's a very, very, very specific style that was born in the French-speaking region of Belgium called Wallonia. And they are farmhouse ales. What is a farmhouse ale? So farmhouse ale are rustic styles, which normally, aren't really super complex and really super, special in terms of special ingredients to make. Are basically stuff that people will drink after a long day at work. But as I see Roman, it's probably on. So let me invite him so we can speak about what a Saison is and made for the summer. Yeah. Hello, mate.
How's it going?
I'm very good, man. I'm very good. Nice to see you.
And you?
I love your t-shirt. You already know that, right?
Yeah. Thank you.
So welcome to Digital Beer Stream. Thank you very much to accept my invitation. It's a pleasure to have you here today for me. And have I ever told you that I have really great respect for the beer that you make?
No, you haven't. It's always a good thing to hear, though. So I appreciate it.
I really do, man, because all the beers that I try lately as well were really, really great. And, I like to see many people around don't really know what exactly La Saison is. And I think Roman is the best person to, go through it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for having me on, first of all. And it's hard to find. I feel like lots of people are experts on Saisons, but in reality, they're not. And I definitely don't count myself as an expert on the style. Just because the history of it is so contentious, and we really don't have kind of modern examples that still exist today, because it was mainly farmhouse brewing, only until it became kind of commercialized at like a later point.
Well, in the meantime, just don't want to, make anyone upset if they don't see me with a beer. Cheers.
Cheers.
What are you drinking?
So I've got our table Saison, which is made. It's 3.2%, made with spelt. It's really full-bodied for the style, but everything's quite gentle. The esters are quite gentle, and there's just a little bit of coriander seed in the boil and German hops. So it's kind of light. It's great beer for this weather, I'd say. But
oh yeah, and the fact that you add, the word table at the beginning of the word makes me feel like super smushable, something that then you can have in quite vast quantity.
Yeah, I mean, from a Solvay Society perspective, definitely been trying to kind of push that with our beers, because I think a lot of people can be put off by Belgian styles because they all think they're strong, or they're dark, or all of those connotations. And we want our beers to be drunk in pubs as well as at home, so you need to kind of find that balance in making the beer really drinkable.
Well, this is a very interesting topic for me, because I'm gonna arrive to that in a bit. And when we're talking about Saison, it's not really a style, right? It's more like a category.
Yeah.
So can be a very different Saison from another. They don't really probably look similar at all, but they're both a Saison. Why is that?
Well, again, I think historically the beer would have been made with whatever was available. And so, even for things like, we think that it's going to taste wheaty or look quite similar to a wheat beer, when in reality, a lot of the wheat that was grown would have been used for bread making. Wheat was expensive, so they wanted to use cheaper grains in the Saison. So yeah, okay, they would have used some barley, but they would have been using spelt and millet and whatever else would have been grown at the time. So yeah, I think it can look different, it can feel different, the ABV is going to be different. So I think, yeah, it's a category, and it's pretty wide ranging.
I agree, because again, I found very, very different beer, all of them. And you're an example, because you making you made beer that could potentially stay in that category, but they were very, very different from each other. So is it probably then some people will associate Saison with sour beers somehow.
Yeah, I think there's definitely an element of that. Lots of people, I think, first of all, don't know what the word saison means. And as you said earlier in your intro,
Please go for it.
Means season. So yeah, I think they might not know what it means, and they think it means sour, is associated with sour somehow, or they've tried one saison that was like a really, let's say, maybe fairly modern take and was quite sour for whatever reason, and then they said, okay, well, I don't really like sour beer, saison isn't for me. But I think there's so many different kind of entry points to the category that they're all kind of worth discussing. And I think the Craft Beer Channel did a video I think a couple of months ago discussing that topic and had some really good examples in there. And I think that's probably a really good starting point if you want to kind of look into the different entry points for the style.
100%. And again, I noticed from my previous experience when I was living in Italy, for example, that it's the perfect beer to approach a restaurant if you want, as the beers are really, it works very well on a table, I would say.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so. And to the point that kind of what you're saying is, I think someone posted this on Twitter a few weeks ago. I saw that they're like, oh, whenever a restaurant does any kind of beer pairing, it's all saisons on the menu. But I think that's just the reality of it, because saison generally quite dry, so it doesn't hang about on the palate. It's not huge and fruity like an IPA or something, so it's it's not gonna blow the food away. And I think it has its own nuances that it just works so well with food.
And potentially, as you are Belgian, born brewer, I'm sure you had many occasions to try the beers that you were liking back in the days, and probably even in these days with food, instead of, for example, how people consume beer in Britain.
Yeah, definitely. Something that I always notice in Belgium is that you can easily go into a bar and they'll only have maybe 3, 4, 5 taps, but they've got a list of bottles that, is like 50 long. And so, people don't really shy away from looking at bottle lists in Belgium in any kind of bar. Whereas I would say over here, you always go to the taps to go, right, well, what's on tap? And if you can't find anything that you like, then you might look at bottles, but you're always aiming for draft beer.
For sure. And is your attitude and your mission with the brewery to almost create the right balance between a Belgian culture, a Belgian beer culture, and a British beer culture, or you don't see these necessary really?
No, I think they're probably worth I think trying to find a kind of compromise between the two, because I would never expect people in Belgium to drink beer like they do over here, and vice versa. And so cask beer is, like, for instance, not a thing in Belgium. It hardly is anywhere else in the world, to be honest. And likewise, kind of the culture of drinking a bottle in a big glass and kind of sipping away at a 9% beer, I don't see that becoming the norm here either. So I think what we're aiming for is somewhere in between, and making sessionable beers that are kind of full of character and identifiably Belgian, but without people going, oh wow, that's like way over the top. So I think kind of finding the balance between those two is what we're aiming for.
And do you see Saison's works, for example, in cask?
Not in cask, no.
You can't do it.
You kind of need the carbonation, otherwise it just feels really thin, and I feel like kind of the pepperiness and some of the esters, like the bubblegum flavors, would just be really abrasive.
Right.
Yeah, without that carbonation to kind of like keep it flowing across the palate, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and with the re-fermentation on bottle, you can almost try to create that, but at the end of the day, the fermentation will be too big to call it real ale. So
yeah. Well, I mean, that's the other thing, is that the casks would be all over carbonated, given enough time, right? Especially in the summer.
Yeah, makes sense. And how do you see Saisons following a trend in contemporary beer like heavily hopped, double dry hopped? An
It,
idea?
yeah, I think there's kind of a couple of things. So that I think Saison is a great beer, actually, if you're a home brewer, to kind of start learning with as well, because there are many intriguing points to it. Obviously, it's very yeast led, and we can talk a bit more about that later. Um, but you have quite a bit of freedom with the grains, and then from there it's a really great canvas to kind of layer other flavors on top of, whether that's kind of like citrus fruit, or so you could get that from hops, or you could get that from actually, zest and juice and whatever.
Yep.
You could add herbs, lots of really great herb saisons, and one of the ones we're going to move on to next, well, actually two of them that we can talk about are both made with herbs. And then spices as well. So it's a really great canvas, lots of stuff to experiment with.
It's great. And you were saying about some specific ingredients for the Saison. So compared to other styles, maybe are really mold or hop forward, everything about Saison, it comes from yeasts, right?
Yeah.
Right.
That's generally what our perception of it would be. And so if we think about it, without talking too much about the yeast itself, but if we think about the different categories of saisons that we generally find today, we've got kind of clean and maybe hoppy saisons. So I would say the one that I'm drinking kind of falls into that category.
Yep.
Then we've got some very yeast-led ones, but that are still clean. So Boxcar made one that's great in that regard. And then we have kind of the mixed fermentation saisons, and those are almost a completely different category, because quite often they would taste sour.
Right.
I think someone looking for, something really refreshing on a hot summer's day, instead of having a lager, could have a clean saison and really enjoy it. Whereas if they might have had one of those mixed ferm saisons, if we think about a bière de saison from Kernel, that's not really recognizable as kind of what we generally think today of as the saison, even though it's an amazing beer. So I think for people coming into the style who don't know it, those are probably two different kind of aspects of it that are worth understanding.
And it makes sense, and I reckon, like, as a brewer and a Belgian-born brewer, and able to understand and want to keep the quality of your beers high. I'm sure you have your own yeast, and you manage to create, how can I say, like, feed them properly, and maybe like doing some oil researches around there. How does it work for a Belgian style brewer perspective?
Yeah, I mean, always very careful about the saisons that we use, particularly now in the beers. So we were, just buying in a dry strain that we were using, but that was kind of a more hop forward saison. So we, using a fair bit of hops in the kettle and in dry hop, and using kind of a rotation of hops in the dry hop as well. So there the yeast took a back seat, and we just used a dry strain. But now in our new table saison, the one that I'm drinking, Minimize, that's made with our house yeast that we use across the beers. And then two other ones that we'll come to in a second are made using yeast that we've captured from the air, as well as some lab yeast. So yes, a little bit more exciting.
A bit more exciting. Yeah. Okay. Brilliant. And please tell me about the other two styles that you make. Solvay Society, please.
So the styles of saison.
Yes, please.
So we basically have one that's our core beer, which is this one, Minimize, 3.2%, really light and clean. If you compare that to the other two, summer and autumn, that are kind of seasonals, they're kind of completely different and opposite ends of the spectrum to Minimize, but also completely different to each other. Both blended, both fermented in steel,
Yeah.
So they don't have any oak character. They don't have any of that kind of oxidation that sometimes you get with barrel aged beers. And they both have kind of a relatively light funkiness. One of them is really tart, and the other one is actually got quite a lot of sweetness because it's red.
Yeah. So almost like interesting backbone to support all the flavor profile. Which
Yeah,
is,
so they're both made with kind of a hop and herb combination. So the summer one, which I'll open now, actually.
please.
So
Just,
this one's incredibly pale. As you
oh
can
yeah.
see, good level of carbonation. I don't know if you can see how pale that is, but yeah.
Oh yeah.
Really bright citrusy sourness made with Amarillo and rosemary. So it's all kind of this balance of kind of tart and savory flavors in this one.
Okay. And would you describe yourself as, I don't know, like a Belgian beer, curious? Like, are you still going to try to find some variations within the style, maybe some obscure deviation, and like grisette, beer de garde?
Yeah, so I would say that I kind of try and find some variations on it. Obviously, a lot of the really exciting ones, I would say, would be the mixed fermentation ones and ones made by American and Canadian breweries right now.
Yeah.
There probably aren't that many breweries in Belgium really churning out, let's say, modern breweries churning out the style. There are some older ones, like De Glazentoren. I don't know if you're familiar with. Yeah, yeah, they make amazing beers, and they're some of my favorite. But yeah, their Saison d'Ephemer is great.
I remember when I was working at Mother Kelly's, we had all of these beautiful wrapped bottles coming from the brewery that you just mentioned, and I didn't know how to interpret them because I felt they were attached somehow to tradition, but in the same time, it was clear they were having a brand new path in front of them, and again, this is the beauty of trying to being a London brewery. If you were in Belgium, I'm sure you potentially will have some, I don't want to say difficulties, but probably resistance from traditional drinkers, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Like Camera, perhaps in these days.
Yeah, I think yeah, they're on. I don't know how organized it is over there in that regard, but I think now the trend has been to be more accepting of the new breweries in Belgium, and you still have kind of I think a lot of the older ones like De Glazentoren, I think they export like 60% of what they make.
Wow.
So
It's a big
not that many people are drinking kind of those older breweries in Belgium now, unfortunately.
Wow. Yeah, again, when most of the people think about, what's interesting about Belgian beer, there is a big interest, of course, in sours, in all the lambics, and the one that we know already. And I see Brussels beer projects and breweries like that, coming stronger over the top. But I don't really see them doing a grisette. I see them doing juicy IPAs.
Yeah, and stouts and I think they because Belgian beer was such a staple in the country, and there it was basically that and pils for so long that a lot of people just kind of started moving away from that and have found the exciting new beers being brewed by the young guys. Kind of I mean there still are a few brewing the kind of more classic styles. There's a few in Brussels. Brasserie de la Seine do to an extent, and they're probably one of my favorite breweries. Obviously, there's always a lot of love for Taras Bulba, but
yeah,
Zinnebeer is great, and Jean de Bois, their triple, is also amazing. So it's nice to see them kind of innovating, but with a nod to the past. And I think I'd like to do the same with my beers here and kind of find that balance.
100%. And you're really, really doing that, because I saw double, you know, and it's incredible, because I heard people in the Bruges Beer Festival, which I have the glass in here, because it's the best, you know, beer, you know, event for me. I'm really sentimentally attached to the festival in Bruges, and you know, this man, he was probably 75 years old, and he was like, you know, Taras Bulba is better than Westmore Double, and I was just like, no, you can't say that, man. Come on. I mean, I think that, but hear it from that guy, wow, shocking.
All right, here's a question for you.
Please.
What's better, Westmalle Triple or Taras Bulba?
It's almost being like, would you drink Saison Dupont? You know, you can't. It's like Saison Dupont and a very good Saison made in a classic style. I don't know. I don't really know. It's like a mild made by Boxcar and a mild made by a brewer that does that from 40 years. Why do I have to decide?
No, I didn't actually want you to decide. It was too hard a question.
Well, and what about you? Like, would you, you know, risk to be lapidated by, you know, drinkers all around the world?
I mean, there's a lot on the line here.
Yeah, good point, actually. But, you know, again, with Saison, we're capable to say, yeah, that's the best Saison in the world. This guy's doing some of the best Saison in the world. And, you know, we know already pretty much about that. And my interest is to understand, for example, as I said before, who's the best grisette? Which one is the best grisette brewery out there? Which one is the best Bill de Garde brewery out there? Probably there isn't yet.
No, I mean, I don't know. I don't even know how you define the best, because it's such a broad style that, you know, with beer in general, it's hard to say if, you know, which is better, A or B. I think we can probably talk about beers the best in terms of what they mean to us.
Yeah.
And so for me, I can say, okay, Westmalle is the best triple for me.
Yeah.
Because it's the classic, it's the standard, and you know, probably the majority of people who really enjoy triple as a style would probably agree with me. But I think with other styles, they're just too broad, and with some of them, there's not even that much history. So, you know, what's the best double IPA ever, or even New England double IPA?
The one for today, the one for tomorrow, the one from yesterday.
Yeah, exactly.
And who's gonna judge it? You know,
in 5 or 10 years' time, we might look back and just say, "Oh yeah, that was a weird phase of beer where, you know, everyone was making really hazy beers." So
I like that. we gonna remember that way. I'm sure we're gonna do that in the way. And you have big experience in beer festivals and you know, meeting the brewer and, you know, all sorts of events. Overall, what are the first questions that people asking you? Like, are you a Belgian, London-based brewery, or?
That's one of them. That's definitely one of them. Yeah, we say Belgian-born, London-brewed.
It's fair. Makes sense.
It's got a decent ring to it. But also, I feel like that kind of says the most about us, because we do have one foot in Belgium. Obviously, me being from there, but also just the flavor of the beer that we're aiming for. But you know, at the same time, we're kind of brewing in London. London's our biggest market in the UK, but you know, we sell a little bit outside London. But it's also, you know, we've got kind of, well, England, the UK in mind in terms of the styles that we're making, which are kind of slight variations on it. So yeah, I would say that's the fairest description.
Lovely. And you know, I did, for the first week, Pale Ale as a style. For the second week, I did Pilsner, and it's not, you know, a casualty. Then for the third week, I went for Saison. is mentally, I almost had like, a progression line. And the progression line was exactly, these three styles are the ones that I'm approaching the most, in the easiest way. And we're not even thinking too much. I'm just going for this stuff. But unlike Saison, I like Pilsners and Pale Ale, Saison is the most difficult one to let people drink and to convince people to drink. Apart from, I notice people that not normally drink beer, wine lover love Saisons for some reason.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's not even only wine lovers. I think, I've spoken to a few people about this, and I've definitely had the experience myself. People come in and they say, "Oh, I don't like Saison," and you just say, "Look, and then you say, okay, well, what kind of thing are you into?" And they describe a few beer styles, or they just say, "Oh, I just want something really refreshing. I've just walked like half an hour, and you know how it is because you work behind quite a few bars, so you just think, well, if they're willing to veer away from a safe lager, then they'll be really into a Saison. It's clearly that's what they're looking for.
It's dry, it's hoppy, it's refreshing. Why not? You know?
Yeah, and then with wine drinkers, again, I think probably the dryness. Sometimes the higher acidity in beer, so you're getting kind of down close to wine levels. And then, there's kind of a little bit more of a rustic flavor, kind of whatever that means. It's kind of hard to describe, but that's quite reminiscent of wine as well.
And are Saisons pintable, or are they tasting better in a smaller glass, or not in pints, in your opinion?
That's a really good question. I would traditionally definitely smaller measure, but we're working to make Saison pintable.
Okay.
I think the two that I've had definitely, definitely pretty pintable, very refreshing, and I think you sent out like a PJCP style guide today.
Yep.
Which is, if some people watching don't know what that is, it's basically the judging guidelines that are used in the US and now competitions across the world. And I think it said Saison between 6% and 8%. I think we don't make any Saisons that are above 6%. So, I think there's also Saison in general is kind of following a trend to move to lower and lower alcohol. And, if you think you're looking for refreshment, then lower ABV is always going to be better for that.
Interesting. And I like the fact that you just said you're working on something. You're working on making a different perception, a different, vibe. And these confirm the idea that I had before. Along the three most drinkable beer styles, Saison is the one that you have to convince the heart of the people. And I love the color on this one. Ooh, what are we having?
So this is our autumn Saison.
Can you show me the bottle as well, please?
Yeah. The sun is catching it very badly.
That's fine.
Summer and autumn both have my mum's paintings on. So she actually painted the background for it, and they're based on the seasons that they're meant to be drunk in. So this is obviously probably a little bit early or late in the year, depending on how you look at it, for an autumn Saison. But it's still really dry. It's just kind of has this really nice sweetness from the Belgian aromatic malt that we used in it.
Nice. I love that. And I'm really, obsessed with rye ale and, red ale. And when I see like a Saison, then it's going to satisfy me on that point. I'm like, yes. I see already, food pairings. My brain is going mad. I can play with this and that. And it's great.
I think you're going to love this one because it does exactly that. It kind of, it tastes a little bit like, like a red, like an English red,
Yeah.
and it's made with Simcoe, lots of Simcoe and Szechuan pepper. So it's like a really weird, spicy,
Ooh,
modern red ale.
nice. And I'm aware your beers are wide available in London and through your e-commerce or like online shopping.
Yeah,
And few bottle shops as well. I have in my mind Indie Beer in Holloway Road.
yeah, indie beer. I think beer merchants online will also be stocking us. Um, Possibly Yardarm in Leytonstone, but we also do collections from our tap room in Leytonstone. So
Nice. I'm glad. And what next? What are you preparing to the summer? Weird summer. What's happening?
yeah, I mean it's definitely a weird time for everyone. There's no doubt about that. But it's also weird for a brewery because we have lots of stock still in keg, which it's still good for now. But if pubs aren't opening, in the foreseeable future, then that beer is going to go to waste. Our bottle shop, still going strong, and happy to see that. So that's been great. But yeah, I think we've had to change a lot of packaging. Plans. We had lots of stuff destined for keg that's gonna now be diverted to bottle. So yeah, it's just kind of required a lot of thinking on our feet.
You're not the first person saying that along the 3 weeks. And are you going to experience any difficulties with getting ingredient hops, or do you think for now you're all pretty safe?
I'd say we're pretty safe. So kind of in terms of the beer that we've got available now, that'll slowly run out, and we have new beers becoming available. So I don't know exactly what our brewing schedule kind of looks like. Yeah, just going to need to keep an eye on that one. But we have 2 new beers coming out. We have a collaboration with Wilderness, who are based in Wales.
Yep.
And he makes really delicious mixed fermentation beers. He also has an online shop that I'm going to plug. And we brewed a Brett only stout. So yeah, 100% Brett fermentation and hopped with Sabro. So we're aiming for a tropical stout vibe.
But funk in the same time.
It's pretty weird.
I want to write a song about that beer, I'm telling you. Oh, wow. What's the name of the beer? Do you know already? Because this is curious.
I think we've called it 820.
Okay.
The reason behind it being that it takes 8 minutes and 20 seconds for sunlight to reach the earth, and it's all about kind of a contrast between light and dark, because it's a dark beer. There's some roastiness and chocolatiness, but yeah, it's gonna have all sorts of tropical flavor in there.
So next time that you're doing your Zoom meeting to brainstorm the names, just make sure you call me, because I want to be there. This is crazy, man. I really would love to talk hours with you, because you're a great person, and you're a great brewer, and also you're a very nice guy. And
I was really looking forward to this chat. So thank you for having me.
You and Sarah support as well as What's in the Glass, which has been great. And I just want to have this kind of like can I say, like, friendly chats along the weeks until the time is gonna be crazy like this, and people like you really make it easier and make it very, very enjoyable. I want to remind to everyone that we're gonna see you on Tuesday. There is a little competition, and the competition today is about, you can win a beer from Water Into Beer in Broccoli. And if you manage to reply below on the comment section about, do you know when Roman was born? Do you know which part of the world Roman was born? If you know it, this guy right below there, because you can win a beer, which is always good. And Roman, stay safe.
Cheers, man. You too.
And
Thanks very much for having me. Great chat. I've tuned in a couple of weeks before. It's always good. And I'm definitely going to tune in again.
thank you very much. And I want to make sure everyone get a couple of beers from this guy in here. You need to support, you know, independent breweries. You need to support breweries and doing the magic in here. So Katrina just won a beer, which is good for her. And have a great weekend, everyone. Take care.
Cheers. Thanks for having me.
A bientôt. Ciao, ciao.